The first one is, what is the purpose of the shape paper? And it's really important to have the purpose of the shape paper clear. It will become the writing brief for the curriculum writers. And the curriculum writers and the advisory panel that will support them will be advertised. It's an EOI position. So you'll see an ad in the Australian or the Courier Mail inviting people to become writers or advise on the development of the curriculum. So this document is a conceptual document that becomes the writing brief, but it isn't the curriculum. Okay, so at the moment it isn't the curriculum, and it's quite a brief document. There's obviously quite a lot missing, but it needs to give enough direction for those people who join ACARA and become the arts writers. And the people who join ACARA to become those arts writers are not reconceptualising from that point. They are delivering. So this brief has to be strong enough that we don't find ourselves going over territory, going over questions, reconsidering, re-arguing at the point of writing. So that's this particular writing brief needs to be very strong. So the first response from the floor will be from Julie.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for this invitation. It's been fantastic. And I want to thank John in particular and the lead writers for their work and the amazing response they've given to the feedback they've received in the past. You've all been just very, very responsive, and I find that very encouraging because I know that your voices will be heard. I'm here today wearing two hats, one as the National Director of Ausdance, and I acknowledge Marcus as our Queensland Director. We produced the Dance Plan 2012, a few years ago, and in it we had a very important section that says dance to be an integral part of every young person's education by 2012. So we're feeling as though we're on track a little bit. This was quite important as an industry aspiration, not just as an aspiration of arts educators. So I'll get on to dance later, but I just want to focus in my 5 minutes on the National Advocates for Arts Education because I chair that group, and I want to say how proud I am of the advocates within that organisation. I'll just let you know who they are. I can find my pieces of paper. I'm sure you do know already. So Ausdance is in there, the Australian Society for Music Education, the Australian Teachers of Media, Derek is here, Drama Australia, Music Council of Australia, National Association of the Visual Arts, and Arts Education Australia. So that group has sat around the table for a couple of years now, working hard to develop a national voice for the arts. We felt that with Phase 2 not showing any sign of including the arts in the national curriculum, that we needed to have a single voice for the arts, and that's how we came to come together in the latest iteration. We've actually been operating for more than 20 years and had some success, but I think this has been a major step forward for the arts. So the NAA has been working quite closely with ACARA, with the curriculum writers. We've been very fortunately included in a lot of the consultation processes, and I think that the shape paper is reflecting a great deal of the feedback that's been received by the group, by the writers already. I just wanted to talk a little bit about going forward. John has alluded to some of the challenges that I think teachers will have, and as NAA we're looking at helping to resource through our professional associations and as a group the ways in which we can resource the national curriculum when it comes online. We have very good political connections. We've been working closely with Peter Barrett when he was the Arts Minister, and we've had meetings with Julia Gillard's office when she was Education Minister. Now we have a whole new group of politicians to get to know, so we're working on that as the next step. And hopefully in November we'll be able to meet with some of the new ministers in Canberra. So just I want you to know that we are working at a federal level and that those networks are very important to us in order to keep this little house of cards from collapsing. We really need the arts in there to be supported at the highest political levels. One of the things I just received the other day was a very nice letter from Peter Barrett congratulating us on our work with him when he was Arts Minister, so I'm sure he's very happy to have a success to be able to chalk up there. A very nice person as well. I'll just touch briefly. I've only got another couple of minutes left. I just want to touch briefly on the language in the shape paper. We've seen in the media a lot the shape paper referred to as a curriculum or as a course, and Joe's already touched on that, I think. Where are you, Joe? Over there. So thank you for clarifying that. I think to call it a curriculum or a course is really very misleading, and we need to be very conscious of that. This is a shape paper. The strands, the new language, John touched on the new language for the strands. We, in dance anyway, don't have a problem with that. Some of the feedback in the earlier discussions was, you know, a bit questioning about the new names for those strands, generating, realising and responding. But certainly in dance, we've welcomed the new language and also welcomed the flexibility that we can revert to our own making, performing and appreciating when we need to within our art forms. That's the one, they're the organisers that we do use in dance, and I noticed that that's been referred to in the shape paper briefly. The language of diversity, we're really pleased. We worked quite hard in the consultation process to get this sentence in. Cultural diversity and Indigenous cultural heritage are integral to all art forms. We wanted that really up front in the rationale. It had been missing in some of the earlier drafts. So we're very happy to see that in there. We also have not a lot of problem with the interconnected language that John referred to. The integrated art form does send some people into a spin, and I know that that's not what this is about. As NAA, we've worked very hard to make sure that 5 distinct art forms are there and are recognised. So the interconnected language is, from our point of view anyway, not a problem. The last thing I just wanted to draw attention to is the difference between education and training. And I think the shape paper is, especially in the primary years, it's about education. It's not about vocational training. And I think there's a little bit of that has got lost in some of the preemptive media debate that has been happening prior to the shape paper coming out. So I think that training is certainly something that happens in the later years, and this curriculum, we hope, and particularly in dance, and I know in all art forms, will give young people an excellent introduction to those art forms and then offer them the opportunities to go further forward if they have the aptitude and the interest in it. The other thing, as Director of Ausdance National, is the links with industry in the shape paper. I really welcome that, and I know that many of the dance companies, independent artists and others are particularly interested in contributing as much as they can to helping you as teachers to resource the curriculum when it comes online. Thanks, Joe.
Professor Barrett, Margaret. Thank you, Joe. And first of all, as one of the curriculum writers, I must say it's been a great team to work with, but also we've all appreciated immensely the feedback that has been provided to us thus far through a range of forums. Some of it extremely blunt, some of it that has had us sit back and think, okay. But it has all been helpful in generating our own thinking about what is important in a curriculum for the arts. In my 5 minutes, I'm less going to respond to John's presentation and more pose you some questions that I hope will help you think through the paper a little bit further and think about your responses to it. The first question, who makes curriculum? Well, that seems blindingly obvious. We start off with policy makers, those people who have sat around in the various forums that have resulted in the Hobart Declaration for Schooling, the Adelaide Declaration for Schooling, and most recently the Melbourne Declaration for Schooling, which have had an enormous impact on the arts. And just to illustrate one very careful distinction to think about there, in both the Hobart and the Adelaide Declarations for Schooling, the arts were the recognised area for the curriculum, with the 5 arts forms stated within that. In the Melbourne Declaration, it was initially a view of the visual and the performing arts, a separation and distinction of 2 arts forms. We, as curriculum writers, have moved towards embracing all 5 art forms as an essential component of the arts. So there's one level at which curriculum is made.
We haven't made this curriculum yet. The shape paper is going to help all of us develop a curriculum that we hope will be important for all Australian children. In making that curriculum, we'll have the curriculum writers who will then present a curriculum which each state and territory will then make something of themselves. That will then be made something more of at a school level, where a principal, a senior staff and all staff members decide how it is they're going to interpret and address the priorities of the curriculum. And this will differ from school to school. We know that. We've seen it in our experience thus far, and we know we will see it as it continues. The curriculum will then be made by teachers in classrooms who teach from and to their strengths, and the brave recognise their weaknesses and go out and do something about it. So that's another place where the curriculum is made. But the place where we most often forget the curriculum is made is in the transaction between the child sitting in that classroom, their colleague students, and the teachers with whom they work. The ultimate curriculum maker is that child. It's not us. It's what they make of that experience and what they learn from that experience. So therefore it's incumbent upon us to make that experience as rich and as generative as possible so that they may make something of the arts in and through their lives. Which brings me to another question to think about. What is a curriculum? And I go back to John Dewey's comment about what is art. Dewey says that art is not that painting on the wall or this sculpture in front of you. It's what you make of that. It's the experience that occurs in you, between you and that art event. And in that way, when I think about a curriculum, it's not necessarily what's going to come out of this. It's what's going to happen in those classrooms for those children as they experience a curriculum and make something of it. So as you're reading this shape paper and thinking how it's going to inform the curriculum writers, what needs to be in there so that we understand that children are the focus of this event and how they make a rich experience in their lives from the arts. Which brings me to a third question. For whom is curriculum made? It's made by governments who want a workforce and perhaps a little bit ambivalent about the role of the arts in that workforce. You know, are the arts there to make people more creative accountants or something of that nature? Or the arts in the curriculum because all of a sudden we're going to have a huge number of people who are employed on, extremely generous salaries as artists. We may all dream of such an event. It would be marvellous. As a head of a school of music, I look at the young people who come into my school to do the arts and to do a Bachelor of Music in performance or composition, for example. Many of them are there, yes, because they want to be musicians and their ambition is to play in the orchestra, to have a solo career or whatever. There's also a very large group of them who are there because they've been caught by music. It's their absolute passion. They cannot live without it. They have to have music in their lives. They don't think they're going necessarily to have a career in music because they're concurrently doing a degree in something else, or they're planning to go on to medicine afterwards, or law, or business or something. But they just have to do the arts. And that's a group that I think we often forget about. The people that we're in an education, we're not just necessarily training in those senior secondary years to develop the next arts industry's workers. Yes, we are doing that, but that's not the entire picture. We're also educating a population with a deep and rich understanding of the arts and the skill set that has them caught in the arts, that has them captured and impassioned by the arts and wanting to engage in the arts as part of their life, as part of their continuing existence as an Australian. I hope that we are able to add some of that into the curriculum as you look through that K to 8 area as the education preparation, and then that 9 to 12 area as that deep rich, knowledgeable engagement with an arts form that then allows young people to pursue their passion for the arts, whether it's going to end up being a career passion or not, but a deep and rich engagement there. I think that's about all, Jo. Thank you.